Asantehene Otumfuo to the second has called for reforms in Ghana's free senior high school program, advising government to allow parents who can afford payments of the awards education to do so. Admitting the positive impact of the policy, the Asantehene observed various challenges, including poor feeding, continue to plague the program, defeating the purpose of providing quality education. There's more in this report.
The E-blocks have stalled. Funding education is a challenge, but some sectors that aren't critical could have their funds reduced to be rechanneled to the education sector to improve education. Some dormitories in the schools are still not occupied. Some schools do not have science and IT labs. Even the PTA fees are no longer available. Government should look at these challenges and address them.
School bus, free senior high school
We are indeed rolling out the free SHS, but if we brainstorm and realize students will have to go to school and be asked to return home because there is no food, then it is of no use. Let us take a critical look at it. If some parents can pay, we should allow them. In the past, if you pass your exam, we check up with the BEZA to assist the brilliant but needy students. That's where we had the COCO scholarships.
COCO scholarship, those days, they are moving. Net will be to a trans, no trans or dear, who's going to interest, so you try near home. BEZA no who's a win into interest near their school administration. Bezri near their man on so called. It is our bread, they are more Kenya, and never hope. They more than a mother brought for now to 2 million.
Let's expand this further. Dr. Victor Anti is Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies, and as well Divine Claire, he's an education. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. And Doc, so you may have heard what the Asantehene has said. And apart from him, many stakeholders have called for something similar for the free SHS reform that the new government wants to reinstitute. Again, and many times you have also spoken, but a day after what the Asantehene has said, what is still your position on the reform, especially when it comes to the free payment?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. I think that it's important that the Asantehene has added his voice to the discussion on the future of the free senior high school. I know that he said this several times in the past, and he's still reiterating the point. I don't know if the committee that was set up by the Minister of Education engaged the chiefs. I don't know whether there was any engagement with the National House of Chiefs, and specifically with prominent chiefs like the Asantehene. But this is a way that he's also communicating to the committee, the direction that the free senior high school should take. I think that since they are wrapping up with their work, this would help them take a certain position after they have analyzed all the information that they have gathered so far from the general public. But as we have already indicated time and again, I think that the future of the free senior high school hinges on the ability to fund it. The government have made it clear that they are going to use some money from the GET fund that is being uncapped to support the funding of the policy, and subsequently continue to fund the policy through the GET fund. I think that the other avenues that the government can raise money to fund the policy, if the government decides that they would want parents to pay, I think that it should be a buy-in of all stakeholders, and that the discussions that have gone on through the National Education Forum it will be as a result of the discussions that have gone on through the National Education Forum. But for me, I've made it clear that it is going to be a little bit challenging for the government to ask parents to pay, especially looking at our political terrain and the implications of such decision. But whatever it is that the people prefer, based on the interactions that have been gathered from the National Education Forum, I think that should be the direction of the government in sustaining the free senior high school policy.
I'll stay with you a little further before I go to define dog. But for the political implications, would it have been the best option to have parents also pay?
I've made this point several times. This discussion would have been best had if we were in 2017. Okay. You see, when you are implementing a policy and implementing in a certain way, and that policy has run for 7 to 8 years now with the same model and strategy, it becomes difficult for you to make an abrupt change of the policy based on some of the things that we have already gathered. And I think that it will be a very difficult position for the government to take, even if that is what the generality of the people are asking. Ideally, you have to do the equity, you have to implement the equity principle and ensure that those who have the ability to pay, and those who do not, you support them, just like Asantehene said, just like the finance minister said in 2017, and most other people, I mean, the former finance minister, and most other people have also said. The only problem is that we did not implement it in this way, and therefore in going to do it this way, you will need to do you need to be more strategic so that you'll be able to get the people along with you as you implement it in that particular direction. That will take a little more time, and I think that it is not feasible in the political space for the government to do that in the immediate term.
Well, Divine. And so Dr. Anti believes that it will be quite difficult, even if the government decided that parents should at least take a portion, if not entirely, especially parents who can afford should be the ones paying. But then if the government decides to want to implement this amid all the challenges that we can foresee, how feasible can this be? And really, can we even identify which parents would be able to pay? This would mean that parents would have to elect themselves to decide that, well, I can pay for my parent, for my child or my ward. What are the chances? What would this look like if the people that have been constituted to also come up with some reforms decide to want to add this as part of the reforms? Is this feasible? Hi, Divine. Divine, if you can hear me, kindly unmute. Well, I'd go back to... okay, right, Divine. Go on. Yes.
All right. So I've heard your question, and yes, I must comment for adding his voice once again for this particular discussion. He has been consistent with his position as far as the implementation of the policy is concerned. He has in the past acknowledged that there are challenges with the policy implementation and the need for us to have a second look. So coming up again also with the position that parents that will contribute to it should also step forward to do that. I think that particular position is reinforcing what generally I have been seeing in the past, right from my participation in the National Education Forum and even post its event. I've noticed that a general position is being alluded or pushed forward by many prominent people and then Ghanaians in general. That is cost sharing. That we need to share costs as far as this policy implementation is concerned. And so what the Dr. Ufu just said is also a mean of saying, let us share the cost between parents and then government. Just that he said those who want to do it should willingly step forward to do it. And maybe that is where the challenge will be, because you know, if you ask parents to step forward voluntarily to contribute to the fund, they are not going to do that. Because even at the inception of the policy, I recall the then government mentioning that they are open to people who want to voluntarily contribute to the policy implementation. And yet, we have never seen any voluntary contribution towards policy implementation. So it tells you that even if you want to leave it open, that parents who want to contribute or pay for their awards, who are in position to pay for their awards, should step forward to pay. Clearly, they are not going to do that unless there's a policy direction asking parents to pay. Not until we are deliberate in bringing in a policy that compels those who can pay to pay, leaving it open, I'm not sure we are going to achieve that. So I appreciate the recognition of made by the two for that there's a need for us to share costs, but we may not necessarily have to leave it open, because in the past we tried opening that those who want to contribute should do, but we've never even gotten a person. So there's a need for a policy direction for us to be able to get people that actually can pay should be able to pay towards the policy implementation. And I have always said that, look, if we are willing to do this, if we really want it to get parents who want to who are in position to pay to actually do that, truly we can do that. It's not that it's out of control.
Divine and Dr. Anti, it looks like in the education sector, it's even way beyond just feeding infrastructure and all. Let me show you this and stay with me. Now, still in the education sector, at Sachilbo DA Primary School, learning is a fight against the odds. Pupils do not just lie on the floor to write. They share overcrowded classrooms where multiple grade levels are taught together due to a dire shortage of teachers, with only 2 teachers handling the entire school. Lessons are merged, making quality education nearly impossible. Hunger depicts the crisis as pupils go through the day on empty stomach with no access to school feeding program. My colleague Emmanuel Jivenu has more in this latest episode of Education Series, Crumbling Start. Stay and watch.
Education, often hailed as the foundation of the future, is falling apart in this farming community. At Sechulbo DA Basic School, the earlier stages of learning have become a struggle no child should endure.
We are 3 professional teachers in the school year. With that number, we divided the classes, the grades into 3, because we want each level should also have something. So one of the problems is the classes are not even enough. So we have 3 class rooms and we have to use those classrooms. So we have divided them into 3. KG 1, 2 and basic 1 in one class, P2, P3 in another class, P4, P5 and 6. And we are handling them. We are not finding things easy. It's very difficult for us, but we are managing. Be you okay, man?
Multi-grade teaching is not a choice here. It is a necessity, one that compromises the quality of education and the future of these children.
Frankly speaking, we have not been fair. We have never been fair to these young children. The children are suffering. How can a child sit on the floor to write? Some, even we have to buy mats for them to be able to sit so that they will be a little bit clean.
The recent delivery of textbooks to Sachilbo DA Basic School offers little solace when the lack of desk leaves these books vulnerable to wear and tear.
With the textbooks, if you don't have any a sitting place, with the textbook, these children, they are young. They are not like grown up like us.
Well, looks like our problems in the education sector, it's never ending. And I still have Dr. Anti and Divine Kpe still with me here on the desk. Gentlemen, I'm sure you have seen, and this is not a surprise to you. Dr. Anti, I'm not too sure in the reforms that we're looking at, which is basically on the free SHS policy. The basic and the primary as well is suffering. And I don't know what you have to say about this particular one that we have just showed you.
Yes, I think one of the things that we discussed in the poll was the issue of infrastructure at the basic level. So this is a typical example of the challenges that we have at the basic level. An indication that our foundation, the foundation of education is nothing to write home about. So I believe that these issues would have to be brought to the table.
Did I lose Dr. Anti? Divine, please pick up for me quickly. What is really the problem? Are we not implementing our plans well, or it's just that our resources and our funding is just enough? Our education sector is way larger than the amounts that are usually allocated, or what? What's exactly your challenge? Day in, day out, we see this and even worse.
All right, thank you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. Yeah, the problem It's why, of course, we do not have sufficient fund. But for me, I do not see it as generally lack of sufficient fund or inadequate funding. I see it more as our inability to embed equity of resources. That is what I see it primarily to be. Yes, we may not have enough fund in the education sector, and resources may not have actually been meeting expectation. But if the little you have, if you are unable to disburse that or utilize that equitably, then you're going to create a lot of gaps in terms of infrastructure availability in underserved and then well-resourced environments. So for me, I believe that we need to build equity in how we develop education budgets and where we become more not this general application of education budget, where at the end of the day, if you look at it, those in the well-resourced areas are even beginning to have more than what those in underserved areas tend to have. If you look at our education financing, we spend much more on persons in rural areas than children in urban areas. And the same way we spend much more on children that are from richest household than children that are from the poorest household. So if you are able to bridge the gap, or should be able to bridge the gap, then it means you need equity model in how you
be able to bridge okay. Divine, we can go on and on, especially with you when I have conversations with you on education. We can go on and on. But gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It's the start of the mini conversation in our education sector, and definitely we'll call you again. But you're